may have seen the headline from the Herald-Dispatch, re-experienced the Great Textbook War of Kanawha County. This all started in the spring of 1974 when a fight broke out in Kanawha County over the content of textbooks approved for use by the county's public school students. And the Cabell County Public Library at the main branch at 6 p.m. starting this past week, they've got a program on the Great Textbook War, and this program is going through October 11th. There's a display and video program there, and so you may want to check that out. But we also wanted to have in the author of Protester Voices, the 1974 textbook Tea Party. This is a first-hand protester account of the event that launched the fight for the heart and soul of America. Author Karl Priest is with us now. Karl, thank you for coming in. Appreciate it.
Good morning. It's my pleasure to be here.
You were a teacher in Kanawha County in 1974, right?
That's right.
What school?
Chandler Elementary. I was a third-year teacher.
All right. And even at this point in your life, you were a born-again Christian, is that right?
Yes, just within the 4 years.
Okay. Now, how did this all start? In the spring of 1974, I saw a YouTube video of what I think started this thing when a parent came to a board meeting and he began reading from a textbook that was his daughter's. But and so that's the first as far back as I can see from the YouTube videos, and folks we'll tell folks how to find those here in a minute. But how did this whole thing start with the textbook war in Kanawha County?
Well, first I got to correct something. That video you saw was from the 90s, and that showed how.
Oh, it was.
Yeah, that showed how bad the school system got after '74.
Oh, okay.
But what happened similar to that, you won't find the audio or video where Alice Moore, the board member that found the objectionable books, asked a teacher that selected them to read from the book at a board meeting, and the teacher wouldn't do it. And for some reason, that audio can't be found, and they do have audio of all the other board meetings.
It's still available.
Yes.
All right. So Alice Moore, who was a board member in Kanawha County, a school board member, she found out somehow about these textbooks, right?
Yes, she found out about it at a board meeting where they were going to vote and rubber stamp the teacher selection for books. She had come back prior to that from a conference, a board members conference, where a black man told her about the bad grammar that was being used and the demeaning of blacks. So she was looking for bad grammar in this language arts selection. And the board members did not read the books. That was the custom at the time, may still be, as far as I know. But
they didn't read the book.
They didn't have a chance. They didn't read them. That was their custom. And there were hundreds of books. So she wanted to delay adopting the books until she had a chance to read them. Now, there was some type of state law that forced them to be adopted but not purchased. And skipping over some of the technicalities, that's what they voted on that night. And then her husband showed her one of the books that had been selected, and she saw how obscene it was, asked for the books to be delivered to her house, started looking at them, and then it snowballed from that point.
All right. So at this point, she had only been tipped off by one parent. Is that right?
No.
Oh.
No, she discovered it at the board meeting when her husband brought one of the books up that were sitting in the room, and he had just randomly, as far as I know, picked one up, leafed through it, saw how obscene it was, and brought it up to shore. This is after they had already voted to adopt them, but not purchase the series of books.
Mm-hmm. All right. And then I guess from there, parents started realizing what was in these books.
Yeah, Mrs. Moore tried to have a private board meeting with the board members and the teacher selection committee, but someone tipped off the newspapers, and the superintendent decided to make it public that they were going to have that meeting.
Mm-hmm.
They had the meeting, and that's where I'm referring to that the teacher would not read from the book. And it became apparent to Alice that the board was going to take the books no matter what. And then she started going to wherever she could to show books to parents. And it spread from one end of the county to the other.
And that's pretty amazing because that was before internet, that was before email, that was before Facebook. I mean, she actually had to physically go and have a meeting with parents and show what was in these books.
That's right. We didn't have the technology, but we had the passion to do the right thing. And once she started showing the books at one venue, people would take them to their churches or wherever. For instance, I think she used St. Albans Public Library for some of her displays of the books. But wherever they could, around the coffee table, they spread the word.
All right. What was the objectionable material in these books?
Well, the grammar was objectionable, but that wasn't what upset people.
You mean just improper grammar?
Well, there was a move then to accept
slang.
I guess slang would be a good word for it. I haven't been focused in on that part,
right?
Because the books themselves, they had an underlying philosophical anti-Christian bias, but also, and this is mainly in the supplementary books, but they were blatantly obscene. The newspaper couldn't print what was in them. The teachers, I told you, wouldn't read what was in it. When the preachers that were the leaders in the controversy would ask talk show hosts like you to read from it, they'd say, well, they'll put us off the air if we read from this book.
Yeah, and we want to keep it clean here because I don't want those words over the air. But that's the sad thing about it. These words, these phrases that we can't even say to this day, 36 years later, were in Kanawha County school books for young children how old to read?
Well, the real obscene parts were probably late junior high and high school, but those are still minors. The anti-Christian philosophy was from first grade on up.
Give me an example of some of the things that were in these books that people were objecting to without going into the vulgarity.
Well, a key thing, and this is in an elementary book, is the story of Daniel and the lion's den. The selection that they had made it I think it was one of the Aesop's fables. But the conversation with the teacher was instructed to give made it appear that Daniel and the lion's den was a fable. And to us, and I think most people in Kanawha County at that time, and hopefully now, it's not a fable; it's a historical account.
Right. But they tried to make it into a myth, and just presumed that everybody knew that it was a myth. Basically, was the way they tried to play it off. Now, but there was obviously some vulgar things, not just sexual innuendos, but blatant sexual content in these books that children were reading, and I think that's where parents really felt like it crossed the line.
Yes, I cite that in the book, and I also provide a link to my website where they can read the actual contents if they want to, plus the contents of that book that was it's still in Kanawha County schools as far as I know from the 90s.
These books are still in the schools?
Not the ones from 1970, but worse. The one that you're talking about, and people can see it on YouTube for themselves, where the parents started to read at the board meeting, and they stopped him.
Okay, so that's what I saw then on YouTube.
That's what you saw.
From the 90s.
From the 90s.
Okay, I got you.
Or the early 2000s. It wasn't 74.
Okay, I got you. Okay. Were these books in other West Virginia school districts? Were they here in Cabell County, Putnam County?
No, and they tried to make it appear that they were commonly adopted throughout the state. And that's one of the things I also correct in my book. They weren't. When the newspaper surveyed state superintendents, they said no. Now, there may have been a couple of them, but it was rare, if any of them, that had any of these books. Now, we're talking about a wide adoption, over 300 books. I think 325 titles total.